Hey everyone, it's Katie and Mike. Say hi, Mike.
Hi everybody.
So we got out of Ant-Man, the movie that everyone said, we really need this movie? What did you think of the movie, Mike?
It was okay.
It was passable. There were scenes that I actually genuinely really liked. Actually, quite a bit of it was okay. But some of it is starting to become par for the course for the MCU movies, and they, like, a lot of the ways that they've been innovative in the past are becoming. It's not even that
old hat.
Yeah, and they're resting on their resting on their laurels. That sounds correct, right? That sounds like a correct phrase people use, right?
Yes, that's a phrase that people use.
Okay, good. I was thinking that too. I was like, resting on their back legs? I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff in this where it's like, okay, if you want to be considered like the cool movie making studio, like the real, that does cool, interesting things, you kind of have to get past this. And I'm not entirely sure that Marvel and the MCU want to. Especially because Kevin Feige keeps putting his foot in his mouth and talking about how, oh yeah, we are totally diverse, and like we might have like an LGBT hero down the line, like, within 10 years, and it's just like, really? You're gonna do that? But look, Ant-Man, everybody was clamoring for this movie.
Clamoring, not clamoring.
Whatever, I don't care. So,
well, maybe if you stopped to listen to the hordes of masses shouting it from the rooftops, you would know.
Whatever. So Ant-Man. You probably know if you've seen any of the trailers. So, Hank Pym in the 80s, it used to be the 60s, but then time caught up to the comics. So, in the 80s, Hank Pym, making sure, alright, yeah, I zoomed out all the way. Hank Pym created this super suit that happened to also shrink things, and he had a formula, and he was basically working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and doing like super cool, awesome work, right? And then something bad happened, which, spoiler alert, I don't even think I think everybody knows at this point that it's the reason why he quit was that his wife died. And because, frigid women, that's original, right, Marvel? And it totally didn't happen.
Actually, you know what? It technically is original because, it's sort of like the stuff that they used to do. So it's sort of like original.
That doesn't.
In one way.
No, it isn't. And it's also awesome because the whole argument of when terrible things happen to women in comic book movies, and they go, well, it happened in the comics, so we have to put it in. Well, actually, this didn't happen to Janet in the comics, at least not in the main ones. I don't think it even happened in the Ultimates. So unless, I don't know, someone will tell me if I'm wrong. But at least in the she's supposed to be alive.
She's an original Avenger. She named the team. Yeah,
what Mike said. But no, we needed him.
She doesn't get a movie.
She doesn't get a movie. Hey. And so now Hank Pym's old protege, who is now evil. Oh my God, hold on. So, all right, well, we'll get to the dumb villain, but he's created his own suit that he's going to sell to whatever horrible evil army decides to give him the most money. But he's still working on the formula, and so Hank decides with his daughter Hope, who is his mole in the company's organization. Okay, we need to get in. She's like, I can do it. I can use the suit. And he's like, no, you can't use the suit because of things I'm not going to tell you about. There are certain things in my past I'm not going to let you know about. Also, your mom died in a plane crash. That totally happened. Also, you can't use the suit. So, and by the way...
If you haven't caught it by now, Hank Pym's kind of an asshole.
the good news is that they did retcon the whole him smacking his wife. That never comes up. Which, by the way, again...
Let's hope it never comes back
Let's hope it never comes back up. So, like, the good news is that for once, violence against women was actually retconned out of a comic book movie. For once. Yeah. By the way, the Killing Joke's getting an animated movie. Guess who's excited? Yeah. But yeah, so Marvel retconned out the time that Hank slapped his wife, assuming they did. Anyway, so they decided, like, no, you can't do it, Hope, my daughter, with Janet, but I am going to get another guy in the most convoluted way possible. I'm going to bait him to rob from my house. How? Alright, this is, so, there's a part where, so, there's so many bits and pieces to the first, like, 30 to 40 minutes of this movie, and it's so slow, and I know that you could at least have chopped out a good portion of it, because Hank then ends up explaining the villain's whole thing later on to our hero. What's our hero's name again? Scott.
Scott.
Yeah. So there's this whole big scene with the villain that could have been cut out entirely, because everything that we find out about that is explained later that is explained to Scott by Hank. There's no reason for it. And I was like, this opening is so long, just cut it. Just cut this part. I actually did like this movie. I liked a lot of parts of this movie, but the parts that were convoluted and frustrating and slagging, like, hit on my brain. So anyway, so Scott's just out of prison. He had stolen money from his former employer to get back at him, and actually it was a Robin Hood thing, because of course we need our thief hero to be like, have a heart of gold. And so he ends up getting caught stealing from it and dispensing it out to all the people who were burned by this company. And so he goes to prison, and when he gets out, his ex-wife is engaged to someone else, and he can't see his daughter, and he can't pay his rent or his child support because he can't get a job, even though he's an engineer. So we have this engineer heart of gold who happens to also have, like, an edgy side. By a lot of this would have been annoying as hell to me if it wasn't for the fact that that Paul Rudd is actually quite charming in this. There's very little where he's smirking, or like, there are a lot of parts where he's genuinely just trying to either be a good person and a good dad, or completely confused by what's going on around him.
I feel like they used a lot of his straight takes. Like, I'm sure there's some where he went, like, really over the top with his line read,
yeah.
But then they ended up using a lot of his straight takes.
Do you think it worked better or worse?
I don't know, because I don't know what the other ones look like.
I do think...
Because his sarcasm is very dry.
Yeah, but I do think that they did a good job of not trying to make him Star-Lord, because I think when we first saw the trailers, we were like, oh god, I don't need another smirmy guy. There was absolutely no sexism from him, though, so that was nice. Even though he does... we can get to the spoilers later, I guess. But there isn't, like, he's not... I think someone was saying the charming misogynist trope kind of needs to die. And luckily, he is not a misogynist in this. In fact, I don't think any of the characters really are. Even the villain actually does respect Hope quite a bit. I can't think of anybody who's necessarily, like, sexist in this movie. The writing undermines some things, and the writing of Hope is a little frustrating because she's very negative throughout the movie because she thinks that she's the best one for it. And even Scott says, she probably is. So, but there's a lot of her just being frustrated and negative, which I get, but it doesn't. It makes for like it just doesn't go anywhere. You know what I mean? So, yeah, and it just felt like, why aren't you using me? I'm a really good fighter, and I know this. I know the dynamics. I know the building really well, where they have to go get this stuff.
She can control the ants.
She can control the ants, and they're like, no. It's basically like watching the MCU. Look at all of its female characters, and all the female characters go, look, I can do this. Look, I can do that. Look, I'm Captain America, or I'm Captain Marvel. Look, I'm another Hawkeye. I can shoot arrows actually better than Clint Barton, and I'm really, really interesting, and I have half ownership of a dog. And the MCU going, no, we're gonna do Doctor Strange with like the whitest British guy ever. We're gonna do that, and then maybe we'll get to like a Ms. Marvel and a Captain Marvel and like
I'm an original Avenger.
Nope. Nope. You're
Ant-Man.
already dead.
Ant-Man.
We're doing Ant-Man instead. We're totally passing over the Wasp. So they mentioned the Wasp by name, so that's nice. But no, it is like the actually Hope's whole arc in this really is, though, it's essentially, this is kind of the big problem, is that it's partially the story from the Lego movie, where Wildstyle thought that she was going to be the one to be the hero, and then she has to, like, support and boost up this, like, regular schmo. Now, I mean, the one good thing about this is that they actually say, hey, you probably are the most qualified, but he doesn't want to lose you. It's still not good, because it's still like undermining a female character and saying, we want to protect you, therefore you can't do any of the cool stuff in this story. It's frustrating. And once again, it feels like female character who genuinely I didn't mind in this movie at all, but they give her only some stuff to do when they keep also reminding you time and time again how she would be really, really good for this mission.
She'd be awesome in an action movie. And also, I think in the Edgar Wright original script draft, she was very
prominent,
little involved, and this is a bigger role for her in this movie.
Oh, yeah. So, I don't know. I'm frustrated by that bit, and it's more in... I wouldn't be so frustrated by it if this isn't, like, the fourth time that, like, it's just a female character. I'm trying to think of stuff that we can talk... Should we just... Alright, so I will say this. There are a lot of fun moments, some of which are in the cameos. There are actually two big cameos, one of which happens at the very beginning, which made me gasp because I kind of forgot that I knew that was showing up. And then as soon as that person scene was over, I was like, oh, well, it's all downhill from here. And then there was one in the middle that was actually one of my favorite bits that I thought actually tied pretty well this story into the stuff that's going to be happening up in the MCU next. However, I feel bad because Mike had gone to get more popcorn and drink when this happened, and I was like, no, oh no, it's, look at the cool thing happening in front of me, and Mike's not here, oh no, and I was like, oh man, I really hope the light's short, and it kept going on, and I was like, come on, oh my gosh, if the scene changes before I can, then I'm gonna have to explain to Mike how he missed this whole great scene, and he saw like the end. I'm sorry, hon.
We will never speak of it again.
You're gonna get to see the movie again.
I know. I'll probably go, like, maybe I'll just do a matinee tomorrow while you're at work.
Okay. So, and we'll
matinee tickets, yay, $5.
We'll get to spoilers. There were actually a lot of bits I liked. I liked Scott Lang a lot better than I expected to. For the most part, they made his whole I want to do this for my daughter thing way more, like, I was actually pretty...
You kind of understand it.
Yeah, it wasn't half-assed. Like Like, they actually tried to build this thing where, like, no, he actually is trying to do the best he can. He's not a complete smartass. And again, they didn't try to make him Star-Lord, because that was the thing I was worried about. I thought it was interesting how they did a lot of the mechanics. They actually did have to train him, and the different ants were interesting. Even though, like, apparently ants live everywhere, because whenever Scott needed them...
Well, technically there is, I was reading an article, like, maybe 2 months ago. There is a global, like, network of ants or something.
Yeah, but...
There is a group of ants that are, like, one gigantic network system.
Okay, but there's one part where they crawl out of the, like, interior of the car.
I know.
So is it like, is the PIM house just
crawling with ants?
And here's the thing, when he's not controlling the ants, because, like, there's this whole bit where Hank is like, oh yeah, I can just control the ants a whim as long as he has, like, the earpiece in. But I just kept thinking, you know, you can't use the earpiece at all times. So do you just have ants? Like, at that point, when you stop controlling the ants are in control of their own brains again. In which case, look, I've had ants in my kitchen. They're not fun. And these are like, some of them are like giant bitey ants. Where their whole point is that you can use them to attack people when you're in the suit. So my thinking is, you don't really want those around when you can't control them, like when you're asleep. So, okay, so...
Maybe they think Hank Pym is like their queen.
Or something.
So they will continuously try to mate with him.
Anyway, alright, so I feel like I'm underplaying. It was actually really enjoyable, and I liked a lot of the bits, but the actual plot, the villain was really, really bad. Like, this was a pretty lame villain.
This is probably the worst Marvel villain.
It was daddy issues. He sees Hank as a father figure, and he disappointed the father figure, and it's basically Loki. All right, it's basically Loki without the I didn't know I was adopted thing.
Loki without the grandiose and the real story. Like,
yeah, basically
they gave him nothing.
He's
just villain.
Hank reminds Hank too much of himself, so that's why he decided not to support the guy anymore. And then he's like, oh, I have father issues with you, so I'm going to sell weapons to evil governments.
Maybe there's a reason a lot of assholes Hank sees a lot of himself in a lot of bad people. Maybe there's a reason for that.
I think he basically acknowledges the fact, no, I am not a good person with this technology. That's why I stopped, or something. Also, my wife is dead, kind of. Sort of. Trust me, I did like it a lot. But, the action set stuff, the shrinking dynamic, like, all that stuff was actually pretty interesting, and they tried to do some things with it.
Yeah, the fight scenes were pretty good. There were a lot of things that were really good. I liked the keychain. And
their buddies were that's kind of a spoiler, Mike.
No, it's not. No one's gonna catch it.
Sorry, I'm looking down. I actually Michael Pinn. I never know how to pronounce the little squiggly over the end. But plays his friend Luis. And even though, alright, they lean almost into stereotype, sometimes just go right into stereotype, but he was genuinely, like, one of the funnier bits, and they did a few kind of funny things with him and their characters. Of course, it's the most ethnic, not white characters in the movie also happen to be the thieves. Kind of a problem. Except for one black family whose lawn Scott
destroys.
Yeah, basically.
And yard. And
they
windows.
do not get any lines.
Well, they screamed.
That doesn't count as a line. At least it was like...
Oh, wait, they said call 911.
I don't think they did.
Yeah,
Alright,
they did.
Anyway. So,
that's how the police knew to go back to that house.
So, I again, I actually liked a lot of it, and I think you're going to have a good time in general with it. I think it is a smaller story, but it is a smaller story. Like, they keep it kind of simple. In fact, there's a bit where Scott's going like, what about other people? You know, after this was exclaimed, like, why me? And they're like, because you something. He goes, what about the Avengers? And first Hank goes, you think I'm gonna let the Avengers have this?
I spent years keeping Tony's hands out of my work. You think I'm gonna give it back to his son?
The response was basically, fuck the Avengers.
Fuck Tony.
So, and then the other thing was, he was like, and they're probably still saving islands from falling into the ground. Who knows?
No, they're dropping cities.
Yeah.
Dropping flying cities or something.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think. Well, Daredevil could have done it. I bet Daredevil could have. Why didn't they call Daredevil? Oh, wait, he's in New York. Oh, yeah, apparently this is San Francisco. Did they ever explain that? Because I think they only did at the end.
They didn't really set it up very well as San Francisco.
Which is weird, because they set up everything else for way too long.
It's supposed to be San Francisco, and
it's actually Georgia,
Yeah, it's actually Georgia.
Because we stayed for the credits, of course. So,
Well, actually, that's where Marvel, or someone partnered with Marvel, they built a whole studio down there, so that's where they shoot all the movies
Oh,
now.
that makes sense.
So that's why they can do it now, like, year-round. Because I think the last movie to be shot, which was shot in England, was Guardians of the Galaxy. But now they have this Georgia facility where they can just shoot movies on end.
Yeah. Okay, so, what was I going to say? I actually did like it. We're complaining about the stuff that really stood out. That's the thing. All the enjoyable stuff was fairly, just middle. Good. It was good. I will say a lot of it is CGI, but it doesn't feel as bad as, the Spider-Man movies where, you could really tell when it was just a CGI battle. This felt a lot less, I was more invested in the fight scenes and my brain didn't shut off as much. Probably because there was interest, and they were trying to make the fight scenes interesting by doing all the shrinking and enlarging and stuff. I'm trying to think if there's anything else before spoilers. It was good. I did like it. I think that if you're not super invested in the MCU, you could probably try to get it on a matinee.
You could just wait to rent it.
I think there are a few parts. I don't even think just if there are a few.
This is going to come out in DVD form before the next Marvel movie, isn't it? So I mean, you could probably rent this movie and have no qualms about or miss anything between the next Marvel movie.
Honestly, the only scene that I would say definitely watch in theaters just because it was really fun was the scene that Mike missed.
Mike missed.
What did I say?
Mike missed.
I'm really tired. It's been a long day. It's been a long week. It's been a long month. But, yeah, I liked it. I keep saying that as if I'm trying to convince myself, but I actually did enjoy most of it. But all the stuff I want to talk about is in spoilers, so unless you got do you have anything else?
Let's go to spoilers.
Alright, spoilers. So, surprise! Janet might not be dead! If you didn't catch that before, the whole thing of, she was lost in an experiment. Except, no, it wasn't the experiment. It was a warhead from Russia?
Yeah, ICBM or whatever.
And so Janet had to undo the stabilization belt and go even smaller, subatomic. And by that point you have no sense of space and time, so you...
Well, when you take off the regulator, you start shrinking uncontrollably and continuously shrink smaller and smaller and smaller.
And your brain can't function at a certain level.
Yeah.
And so you become lost. So basically, Janet did that in order to stop this bomb from going off, and Hank just assumed that she was gone. If she wasn't completely dead, whatever version of her is lost to to that subatomic level. But then,
and Hank, the asshole who only tells his daughter in her like 30s.
No, she's like 40 by this point, I think.
So
maybe like 35, 40.
Okay, I know their relationship is really estranged, but like still, Hank's an asshole.
It was a dick move. And it was like, oh, I was trying to protect you. I'm pretty sure if I understood that my mother was a hero who helped save a bunch of people from a bomb, it would be a lot better than just she died in a plane crash. And the fact that he basically
kept that lie up for like 30 years.
And he basically just shipped her off to boarding school after because he couldn't deal with the fact that he felt guilty, which is like, you're still... you're still pushing her away and not explaining anything, so she's going to think that you are mad at her or that you don't want to help her try to heal. There was a lot of reasons for her to be bitter, which is part of the reason why you can't get mad at her for being so negative in this movie, because, like, she has really good reasons to be negative about this whole situation, especially the fact that she goes to her dad to try to help him because she figures out that the guy that she's working with is going too far. And Hank still doesn't trust her with the suit and doesn't explain to her why he won't let her use the suit. And it would make a lot more sense if he had actually explained to her up front, no, this is how your mother actually died, and I'm not going to lose you this way.
And Hank's never the one to say that. It's Paul Rudd that comes in to explain that to her for some reason.
Yeah. I did like the fact that he perceived that, and like that his character was empathetic enough to see what was happening. I'm not saying it's good writing. I'm just saying that it was nice that the one nice thing is I don't think there was ever a time when the main hero was a jerk to women.
Yeah.
Ever, but the thing is that it still doesn't. The movie itself hinders her by only letting her do so much in the story. She trains him, and she gets to have a couple moments where she puts herself in danger, but for the most part, she's just helping, and that's kind of a frustrating thing. So that's one of the things. Oh, and then so when Scott gets back because he hears his daughter's voice, and that like shocks him into doing the button right and being able to zoom back in. Excuse me. Then Hank goes, "Oh my gosh, is it possible? Could my wife be alive?" And then he looks at a picture that I swear to God is like him with his daughter, and then his wife, whose face is covered up by a big hat. And I'm like, I know you have not actually cast someone for this, but
we wouldn't care if you like just had someone who looked like a reasonable Janet in the picture, because I mean, we know you don't want to like cast her right now, but still, it's really weird to long for your wife and not have a picture of her face. Yeah,
I just happen to have this picture that's not actually of her face, so I can remember the hat.
Oh, that was a wonderful hat.
So, besides that, what other things? Oh, yeah, Anthony Mackie's in this movie, and that's the thing that Mike didn't get to see a lot of, and I feel really...
Anthony Mackie, he is a joy.
Falcon was in this movie, and it was kind of great. It was basically my favorite part of the movie. I'm saying this because I want to tell you guys this, but I don't want to say it because I know that it's salt in the wound for this guy.
Do not leave the movie after he starts to get good... The good montage of him being good at being Ant-Man.
When they start talking about needing like a piece, because that's the whole thing. They're like, we need this particular thing that Stark was working on, and I'm pretty sure the prototype is in this building. And they're like, it's this building, which is just like a random facility that they're not using anymore. And then Ant-Man starts to fly on his little flying ant guy. And he's like, I'm seeing production smoke. I think this thing is running, and then the smoke clears. It's right. There's a giant A on the top. Because remember in Age of Ultron when Tony used it and he just decided that was the facility? Turns out that and then the Falcon's there. I don't want to give it away too much because I've already told him a little bit of it. But there's this bit where Ant-Man is on the roof and he's so tiny. And Falcon flies down and he's like, oh crap, it's Falcon. Oh my god. Okay, but it's okay. And he's talking in his little headset. Okay guys, it's fine. He doesn't hear me. He doesn't hear me. And Falcon goes, actually, I can hear and see you. I can see you right there. I can see you. Because I don't know, glasses, heat.
I don't know.
I don't know. But, and so there's this whole bit where he's like, he grows taller and goes, hi, I'm Scott. Big fan. And then they have a big fight scene and it's adorable. And the whole time I'm like, Mike, hurry up. Get back here. I almost thought to run out and just grab you and run back in, but then I would have not. It could have been gone by the time and I couldn't tell you about it. So that part was delightful, and also the part at the beginning that I had said got me really depressed when I realized she wasn't coming back. Hayley Atwell as Peggy when Hank Pym decides in the 80s to quit.
With S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, he's like, I'm done with S.H.I.E.L.D. And so she has a moment, even though she barely gets to do anything, it was really just kind of disappointing. A little disappointing.
A little bit, but it sets up Hank.
I was glad she got to be in it, but it just there wasn't a lot for her. They didn't give her even like any good lines or anything, so that was kind of disappointing. I'm trying to think if there's any other spoilers besides that. Oh yeah, so we talked about how Janet could still be alive, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then the big one towards the end, I mean, if you might have heard about the Winter Soldier getting a little, where they set up the whole thing where the Falcon knows about Ant-Man, and so and basically Falcon tells Captain America that he knows a guy who can help, and it's highly implied towards the end of the movie part of the movie that he's looking for Ant-Man again because they think that he can help control Bucky or help Bucky with something.
We don't really know. Bucky was sort of in something, and then I don't know.
Yeah. So they're going to use him in some way
in Captain America 3.
In Captain America 3 Civil War. I keep calling it Captain America 3 Winter Soldier, but I know that's not it. That already happened. But then the one before it, the other credit sequence, was actually the thing that should have been happening a long time ago, was Hank going, I trust you now, and I realize I can't keep you from your whatever. So here's the wasp suit.
We were really building this for you, daughter.
Like your mom and I, we had built this like new suit a long time ago, but now we realize it's for you. And she goes, it's about damn time. And I said, you're goddamn right.
It's based on technology from the 80s.
It's gonna be great. But my whole point though was like, why is it that apparently we need to have all the dude characters established in this franchise, and then we only slightly establish
Wasp gets an after credit scene.
Wasp number 2 gets an after credit scene. So who knows if we're ever going to actually see her get used again. We still haven't gotten a Captain Marvel movie. That got pushed back for Spider-Man. So it's like, apparently all the guys in the MCU, all the guys in Marvel that they can use have to be established and given movies first before we can get any female heroes in besides Black Widow. And even then,
she didn't really get established.
She's only got, yeah. So apparently like that, but that's how it feels with the MCU, and it's getting very frustrating that like everyone else gets, all the guys get their own movies. And then like, oh yeah, we'll give you...
To be fair, Black Panther got, sidestepped for Spider-Man 2.
That is true. But
So, but we establish all the straight white male characters.
Yeah, basically. It is what it is. It's frustrating, and I just don't want. I think that she. Oh, the other thing that actually drove me nuts. Apparently, we can't have them not be love interests, Scott and Hope.
Oh yeah.
I was so like, oh, we're not gonna have them be a thing, and they just work together. I don't think they had any romantic chemistry. They were fine as friends. I actually thought that they worked pretty well once they had, like, you know what I mean? When she was like, oh yeah, I kind of don't hate you anymore.
Once they had their moment in the car.
Yeah. And where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna work together as a team. But apparently, if you have...
That wasn't enough for Kevin
Yeah,
Feige.
if you're a woman in the MCU, and there is a man who has to have a love interest, then you better damn be a love interest, because what else are you good for?
Not to be the Wasp. Or Ant-Man. You can't be Captain America. That's one thing.
That's the thing. I don't hate Hope as a character. I hate the fact that the MCU cannot write female characters. They can only write them to be so competent and to be so good by themselves, but they lean back on these really old tropes that don't need to be used. And that's getting me really annoyed. This could have been a way more interesting way to go about it, but they had to have them have a kiss at the end. And there was no setup. So you basically, again, I didn't mind the character. I really minded these little moments that they had to write in. Oh, do you know who plays her, by the way?
Who?
Tariel from the Hobbit movies.
Oh.
Which just feels like she is just an actress who ends up getting these roles where she gets shoved into these romances, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, she's a badass character, but you better have her be a romance. And I liked her romance in The Hobbit in the first movie she was in. But then they threw it away. Sorry. I'm going to rant about it a little bit. Again, I liked a lot of this movie. You liked a lot of this movie, right? It was enjoyable.
There was a lot that was enjoyable. There was also a lot to nitpick. And if I'm going to nitpick for a second...
Sure.
Okay, so I'm in security classes for computer security and stuff like that. But,
Oh, I'm sure they did an excellent job of being correct.
You know, they brought up this thing called an uninterruptible power supply, and those things are, you know, exist for many reasons, and, you know, it's like, oh, we want to constantly supply power to this thing, otherwise, you know, any difference in power regulations, because this thing is so sensitive, it's probably going to blow it apart, and then, you know, that's $50,000 down the drain or something like that, you know what I mean? So most places have these, you know, these things are in hospitals and stuff like that, and so they were like, wow, they've got an uninterruptible power supply. It's like, it's not that really surprising of a thing to have. In fact, you probably should expect that to be there, you know? And also then... it's also uninterruptible for a reason. Realistically, there's no way that he could interrupt the power and then fly through in a moment, especially if it's a modern system that, because, you know, most laptops, when you pull out the power cord, they still remain on, because what actually is happening, the power is charging the battery and the laptop's running off of the battery, you know, rather than, you know, having the power break and then, oh, we should probably turn on the battery, you know, and it's like, it's uninterruptible for a reason, and, like, their whole heist depends on the power being out for, like, moments, and that probably wouldn't happen.
The other thing that kind of bugs me, too, and it was, like, little things, like, I will say the only moment of sexism actually happens when Hope calls Scott a princess while they're sparring, and it's like, you didn't have to do that. Like, that just is one of those things where, like, oh, we need Hope to seem tough. Let's have her put him down with a gendered insult. That will show that she's tough. You know? Yeah. It's a little thing, but it was something that kind of bugged me. Like, oh, great. Which is really the problem. I feel like if there was a woman writing the script, then maybe we could have, there would have been the red flags that had gone off. If they had like someone who actually has to like deal with those kind of insults and notices them, actually read through the script. But also like just seeing like, oh, maybe give her character a little more meat. Maybe give her a little more than just, I'm mad about this and I'm going to save 5 times. Because that felt like that happened a lot.
I will say this movie is probably better than I expected it to be about 6 months ago. Much better. But it is still not as good as I would have hoped.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way.
I would have much enjoyed liking this movie. But it just didn't make it there.
I enjoyed it to a point, but at the same time, like, I see a lot of the flaws in it. And it was very standard in some ways. It didn't go bad in a lot of ways that I expected it to either, though. And I think that there were things that they succeeded in. But at the same time, again, it's like, it's a standard kind of, okay, this is all right. But are you saying anything new? Are you saying anything different? Is this gonna be really what every single Marvel movie is like with
the origin? With
a lot of the origins, a lot of not that all the characters are the same, but that like
they just keep going through the same story beats over and over again.
There are a lot of similar story beats, yeah. So yeah, I think you'll still like it, and I think you might like it better, more than you expected to. I don't know if you're going to be like necessarily angry at any points, because most of it's just like, oh, that could have been done better, you know? So yeah, that's how I feel. I'm really tired, and I think I'm ready to go. All right, do you have anything else to say?
Not really.
All right. Katie and Mike, justplainsomething.com, and we'll see you later.